The people who tell you to be realistic are the same people who gave up on their own dreams. The people who tell you to have a backup plan never fully committed to their front plan. The people who tell you you're being foolish are the ones who played it safe and regretted it. And now they want you to join them in their mediocrity because your ambition makes them feel guilty. They call it wisdom. They call it experience. They call it looking out for you. But really, it's projection. It's them trying to save you from a failure they experienced because they quit too early. But here's what they don't tell you. The only real failure is living your entire life wondering what could have been. The only real tragedy is dying with your potential still inside you. So when they tell you, nobody cares about what you're building, they're right. Nobody cares. Yet, but that's not a reason to stop. That's precisely why you must continue. You know what nobody tells you when you're starting out? Nobody tells you that you can have the greatest idea in the world, the most brilliant plan, the deepest passion, and still people will walk right past you like you don't exist. They'll look through you, around you, over you, but never at you. Not until you win. And that's the truth that breaks most people before they ever get started. I've watched it happen over and over again. People with fire in their belly, dreams in their heart, plans that could change their entire community, and they're shouting into a void. They're calling meetings and nobody shows up. They're sharing their vision and people are checking their watches. They're offering solutions and the room goes silent. Why? Because they haven't won yet. And in this world, if you haven't won, you're invisible now. This isn't about feeling sorry for yourself. This is about understanding the game so you can play it right. This is about knowing what you're up against so you can prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for the fight ahead. Because make no mistake, building something significant when nobody believes in you, that's a fight. Let me tell you about a man named Rashid. Brilliant architect. I mean, truly gifted. He could look at a piece of land and see things nobody else could see. He had this ability to blend functionality with beauty in ways that made buildings come alive. For 15 years, he built a reputation, won awards, had clients calling him from different countries. People loved being associated with him. His phone never stopped ringing. Business partners wanted to attach their names to his projects. Family members suddenly remembered they were related to him. Friends multiplied like magic. Then the economy crashed. 3 major projects fell through in 1 month. Clients couldn't pay. His firm went under, bankruptcy. And you know what happened? That phone that never stopped ringing, silent. Those business partners who wanted their names on everything, gone. Those friends who were always around, busy. Family members, well, they had their own problems to deal with. Rashid told me he'd sit in his small apartment, the one he had to move into after losing his house, and he'd stare at that phone. Days would go by, nothing. People who used to call him 3 times a day to get his opinion on everything from business deals to what car they should buy vanished like smoke. He said the silence taught him more than all his years of success ever did. It taught him that people don't care about you. They care about what you represent. They care about what association with you does for their image, their business, their status. Now, is that cruel? Yes. Is it unfair? Absolutely. Is it reality? You better believe it. And once you understand this reality, once you really accept it deep in your soul, something powerful happens. You stop performing for the crowd. You stop building your life around their approval. You stop waiting for them to validate your worth. Because you realize their opinion was never about you in the first place. This is human nature. We're wired to pay attention to success. We're programmed to associate with winners. It's survival instinct. People want to be near success because they hope some of it rubs off on them. They want to be in the photographs with the champion. They want to say they knew you when. But when you're in the struggle, when you're in the building phase, When you're in that dark place, when nothing's working yet, they don't want any part of it. And here's what breaks my heart. I've seen incredibly talented people quit right before their breakthrough because they couldn't handle the loneliness. They couldn't handle being ignored. They couldn't handle their ideas being dismissed. They needed the encouragement, the validation, the applause. And when it didn't come, they folded. They gave up on dreams that were just months away from manifestation because the silence was too loud. There was a woman, a medical researcher named Keiko, spent 8 years working on a treatment for a rare disease. 8 years in a laboratory that most people didn't even know existed. She'd apply for grants, rejected. She'd present her findings at conferences. People would ask one polite question and move on to the next presenter. She'd reach out to pharmaceutical companies. They wouldn't return her calls. Her own colleagues thought she was wasting her time. Family members kept asking when she was going to get a real job that paid better. 8 years of that. Can you imagine? 8 years of being told indirectly and sometimes directly that what you're doing doesn't matter, that nobody cares, that you should quit and do something practical. But she didn't quit. And in year 9, her treatment worked. Clinical trials showed results that shocked the medical community. Suddenly, everyone cared. Phone ringing off the hook. Interview requests, funding pouring in. Colleagues who ignored her for years suddenly wanted to collaborate. Family members telling everyone about their brilliant relative. Same woman, same work, same dedication. The only thing that changed was the result, the win. And that's when everybody started caring. That's when she became visible. But here's what Keiko understood that most people don't. Those 8 years of invisibility weren't wasted years. They were investment years. They were the years that built her capacity to handle the success. They were the years that refined her character, tested her commitment, and proved to herself that she didn't need their approval to keep going. See, the world runs on a simple equation. Results equal attention. No results, no attention. It doesn't matter how hard you're working. It doesn't matter how sincere your effort is. It doesn't matter how much potential you have. Until you produce a result, until you win, you're on your own. And that's exactly where winners are made. In that lonely place, in that ignored space, in that season when nobody's watching, nobody's caring, nobody's cheering. Now here's what most people miss completely. Those invisible years. Those seasons when nobody knows your name. When nobody's paying attention. When you're grinding in obscurity. Those aren't punishment years. Those are your most valuable years. Those are the years that determine everything about who you become and what you can sustain when success finally arrives. Think about it. When a farmer plants a seed, what happens? The seed goes into the ground and disappears. You can't see it anymore. It's buried, it's hidden. And for weeks, sometimes months, nothing visible happens. The ground looks the same. If you didn't know better, you'd think nothing was happening at all. You'd think that seed was wasted. But underneath, where nobody can see, everything is happening. Roots are going down deep. The internal structure is forming. The foundation is being built. And all of that invisible work is what makes the visible harvest possible. Your life works the same way. When you're in that season where nobody sees you, when nobody acknowledges your effort, where you're working and there's no applause, no recognition, no results that others can see, you're not stuck. You're being planted. You're developing roots. You're building the internal capacity to hold the weight of the success that's coming. See, we live in a microwave generation. Everybody wants instant results, instant recognition, instant success. People want to skip the planting season and go straight to harvest. They want the crowd to care before they've won. They want the celebration before they've done anything worth celebrating. And when it doesn't happen that way, they get discouraged. They think something's wrong. They think they're on the wrong path. They think God forgot about them. No. You're right where you need to be. You're in the investment phase. Let me tell you about a young woman named Amara. She grew up in a fishing village on the coast. Her father was a fisherman, barely making enough to feed the family. Every morning before school, Amara would help her mother sell fish at the market. And she watched. She paid attention. She noticed which customers bought what prices worked, what times were busiest, how to negotiate, how to handle money, how to deal with difficult people. The other kids in school made fun of her. She'd show up smelling like fish. Her clothes weren't fashionable. She didn't have money for the things they had. They'd laugh at her, call her names, exclude her from their groups. Teachers felt sorry for her but didn't expect much. After all, she was just a fisherman's daughter. What future could she possibly have? But Amara kept watching, kept learning, kept applying what she learned. By the time she was 16, she wasn't just helping her mother, she was improving the business. She figured out how to get better prices from the wholesalers. She identified customers who would pay premium prices for premium fish. She started suggesting different products to sell alongside the fish. Small things, things nobody noticed, things nobody cared about. At 18, she took the little money she'd saved and bought a small stall of her own. Not fish. She started selling basic household goods. People in her village laughed. Look at the fish girl trying to be a businesswoman. They didn't shop at her stall. They wanted to see her fail. But Amara had learned something those years at the fish market that nobody else understood. She knew her community. She knew what they needed, when they needed it, and what they could afford. Years later, she had 5 stalls. 5 years after that, she owned a building with 10 different businesses operating inside. At 32, she employed over 200 people and had businesses in 4 different cities. Now everybody cared. Now everybody wanted to know her secret. Now the same people who mocked her wanted to be her partner. The same community that laughed at the fish girl was asking her to invest in their projects. What changed? She won, but here's the key. She could only win because of all those years nobody cared. Those years standing at the fish market taught her everything she needed to know about business. The mockery taught her to believe in herself when nobody else did. The struggle taught her how to manage money when there wasn't much to manage. The invisibility taught her to work for the sake of excellence, not for applause. If Amara had gotten recognition early, if people had celebrated her at 16, if she'd become popular and accepted, she probably would have stopped learning. She would have gotten comfortable. She would have settled for being liked instead of pushing to be excellent. The very thing she thought was her disadvantage, being ignored and dismissed, was actually her greatest advantage. It gave her time to build in private what she would eventually display in public. This is what I need you to understand. What you're building in secret is more important than what people see in public. The character you're developing when nobody's watching is more valuable than the skills you demonstrate when everybody's looking. The discipline you practice in obscurity is more powerful than the performance you give on stage. See, everybody wants the platform, but nobody wants the preparation. Everybody wants the microphone, but nobody wants the years of having something to say and nobody to say it to. Everybody wants the influence, but nobody wants the season of being influenced by hardship, by rejection, by failure, by silence. But winners understand something. The invisible years are not wasted years. They're investment years. Every no you receive is teaching you something. Every door that closes is redirecting you. Every person who ignores you is protecting you from premature exposure. Every setback is setting you up. Every lonely night is building your strength. Every moment you keep going when nobody's cheering is depositing something in your character account that you'll need when success comes. Because here's the truth. Success doesn't create character. Success reveals character. Success exposes what was built in private. And if nothing was built in private, success will destroy you in public. That's why so many people who get famous quickly fall apart quickly. They never had the invisible years. They never had the investment phase. They got the harvest without the planting, and they couldn't sustain it. Your invisible years aren't your waiting years. They're your building years. Stop wishing people would notice you right now. Start investing in who you're becoming for when they finally do. Now let me tell you something that's going to challenge everything you think you know. Winning isn't what you think it is. Most people are chasing a definition of success that was handed to them by a society that doesn't even know their name. They're running toward a finish line that somebody else drew. They're trying to collect applause from people whose opinion shouldn't matter, and they're calling that winning. Real winning has nothing to do with what other people think. Real winning is becoming the fullest version of who you were created to be. It's maximizing your potential. It's fulfilling your purpose. It's looking in the mirror at the end of your life and knowing you gave everything you had to what you were put here to do. That's winning. Everything else is just noise. But we've been conditioned to measure success by external metrics. How many people know your name? How much money is in your account? What kind of car you drive? What neighborhood you live in? How many followers you have? And listen, there's nothing wrong with prosperity. There's nothing wrong with influence. There's nothing wrong with being recognized for excellence. But if that's your definition of winning, you're in trouble, because you've given other people control over whether you're successful or not. Think about this carefully. If your sense of achievement depends on crowd approval, what happens when the crowd is fickle? What happens when they move on to the next thing? What happens when they turn on you? What happens when your season changes and you're not in the spotlight anymore? Does that mean you stopped winning? Does that mean your value decreased? Does that mean everything you built suddenly doesn't matter? I want to tell you about a man named Henrik. He was a teacher in a small rural village, educated man, had degrees, could have gone to the city, worked at a university, made a name for himself, earned serious money. But Henrik chose to stay in that village. He chose to teach children that everyone else had given up on. Poor kids, kids with learning difficulties, kids from broken homes, kids who society had already written off. For 23 years, Henrik taught in that little schoolhouse, 23 years. His former classmates from university became professors, wrote books, gave lectures at international conferences. They'd see Henrik when he came to the city and they'd feel sorry for him. Such a waste of talent, they'd say. He could have been somebody. His own family was embarrassed. At family gatherings, they'd talk about everyone's accomplishments. And when it came to Henrik, they'd just say, he's still teaching in the village, and quickly move on. Nobody cared what Henrik was doing. Nobody celebrated him. No awards, no recognition, no newspaper articles, just Henrik day after day, year after year, teaching children that nobody else believed in. Giving them not just education, but hope. Not just lessons, but life skills. Not just information, but transformation. He learned each child's story. He understood their struggles. He adapted his teaching to reach them where they were. He stayed late. He used his own money to buy supplies. He visited their homes. He became more than a teacher. He became a father figure to children who desperately needed one. Then one day, 23 years later, something happened. The country held national elections, and 5 of the people elected to parliament, 5 leaders who would help shape the nation's future, were Henrik's former students. Children that society had written off. Kids who weren't supposed to amount to anything. And they all said the same thing. There was a teacher who believed in us when nobody else did. He's the reason we're... Suddenly, everyone cared about Henrik. News crews showed up at his village. They wanted to interview him, write stories about him, give him awards. The university that his former classmates worked at wanted to give him an honorary doctorate. The government wanted to create a national teaching award in his name. All of a sudden, after 23 years, everyone cared. But here's what moved me about Henrik's response. He didn't change. He didn't act like his work suddenly became valuable because people were paying attention. He knew his work had always been valuable. He'd been winning for 23 years. Every child he reached was a victory. Every life he changed was a triumph. Every student who believed in themselves because he believed in them first, that was success. The crowd's recognition didn't make it real, it was already real. See, Henrik understood something that most people never learn. The scoreboard that matters isn't the one the crowd can see. The scoreboard that matters is the one between you and your purpose. Did you do what you were put here to do? Did you give your best to your assignment? Did you stay faithful to your calling even when nobody was watching? That's the only score that counts. The problem with chasing crowd approval is that it makes you a slave. You start making decisions based on what will get attention instead of what's right. You start choosing paths that lead to recognition instead of paths that lead to fulfillment. You start performing instead of building. You start living for the applause instead of living for the achievement. And that's a dangerous place to be. Because here's what happens when you finally get that crowd approval. It's never enough. It doesn't satisfy the way you thought it would. You get the recognition and there's a brief high, and then you need more. More attention, more validation, more proof that you matter. It becomes an addiction. And you spend your whole life chasing something that can never fill the emptiness inside because you're looking for external validation to do what only internal conviction can do. Real winners don't need the crowd to tell them they've won. They know. They know because they've stayed true to their purpose. They know because they've maximized what was given to them. They know because when they lay their head down at night, there's peace. Not because everyone knows their name, but because they know who they are. Not because they impress the crowd, but because they fulfill their assignment. So stop letting other people's opinions determine whether you're winning or not. Stop measuring your success by their standards. Stop waiting for their permission to feel good about what you're building. You define what winning means for your life. And then you go out and win according to that definition, whether anybody notices or not. So now we come to the most important part. How do you shift from being invisible to being inevitable? How do you move from that season where nobody cares to that season where your success becomes undeniable? And more importantly, how do you do it without losing yourself in the process? First, you have to make a decision that changes everything. You have to decide that you're going to validate yourself. Not wait for others to validate you. Not hope someone discovers you. Not sit around expecting someone to give you permission to be great. You validate yourself. You approve of your own effort. You acknowledge your own progress. You celebrate your own small victories. Because if you're waiting for the world to tell you you're on the right track, you'll be waiting forever. This is the shift that separates people who make it from people who quit right before the breakthrough. The people who make it learn to encourage themselves. They learn to be their own biggest supporter. They learn to speak life to themselves when everyone else is speaking doubt. They learn to see value in their work even when nobody else does. They become internally driven instead of externally motivated. And when you make that shift, when you stop needing their approval, something powerful happens. You become unstoppable. Because now there's nothing they can take from you. They can ignore you. Doesn't matter. They can criticize you. Doesn't matter. They can doubt you. Doesn't matter. You've already decided you're moving forward. You've already committed to your path. Their opinion is irrelevant. But here's what's beautiful. When you stop seeking their attention, you often start getting it. When you stop performing for the crowd and start building for yourself, the crowd starts noticing. When you stop chasing validation and start chasing excellence, validation starts chasing you. Not always, not immediately, but eventually, because genuine excellence always gets recognized. Maybe not by everyone, maybe not when you want it, but by the right people at the right time. Let me tell you about an old craftsman named Yuki. He made furniture, but not regular furniture. Each piece was a work of art. He'd spend months on a single chair, selecting the perfect wood, studying the grain, shaping every curve with precision. Every joint had to be flawless. Every surface had to be smooth as glass. He worked in a tiny shop on a quiet street that barely got any foot traffic for 40 years. Yuki worked like this, 40 years. He'd make a few pieces each year, sell them for modest prices to local people who appreciated quality. He wasn't famous, wasn't wealthy. Most furniture makers his age had factories, employees, mass production. They'd tell him, Yuki, you're doing it wrong. You need to scale up, make more pieces, market yourself, build a brand. But Yuki just smiled and kept working. He wasn't interested in their version of success. He was interested in mastery. Every piece he made was better than the last. Every year he learned something new about his craft. He wasn't building a business empire. He was perfecting an art form. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was trying to honor the wood, honor the craft, honor the tradition. Then one day, when Yuki was 78 years old, someone from a national museum walked into his shop. They were researching traditional craftsmanship. They picked up one of his chairs, examined it, sat in it, asked about his process, and they were stunned. They said his work belonged in a museum. They said he was one of the last true masters of his craft. They said his furniture wasn't just furniture, it was cultural heritage. Within months, museums wanted his pieces. Collectors were offering ridiculous amounts of money. Television programs wanted to film him working. The government wanted to designate him as a living national treasure. At 78, after 40 years of quiet, unnoticed work, everyone suddenly cared. But you know what Yuki said? He said the recognition was nice, but it didn't change anything. He'd been winning for 40 years. Every perfect joint was a victory. Every beautiful curve was a triumph. Every satisfied customer was success. The museum didn't make his work valuable. His work had always been valuable. They just finally noticed that's the mentality you need. That's the mindset that makes you inevitable. When you're so committed to excellence that recognition becomes optional. When you're so focused on the work that applause becomes secondary. When you're so dedicated to your craft that fame becomes irrelevant. That's when you become dangerous. That's when you become unstoppable. That's when your winning season arrives. And listen to me carefully. Your winning season is coming. I don't care how long you've been in the struggle. I don't care how many times you've been rejected. I don't care how invisible you feel right now. If you keep building, if you keep improving, if you keep showing up, your season is coming. Not might come, not could come, will come. It's inevitable. But you've got to outlast the doubt. You've got to outlast the criticism. You've got to outlast the loneliness. You've got to outlast the people who quit. You've got to outlast your own discouragement. You've got to stay in the fight longer than the opposition expects. Because most people quit right before the breakthrough. Most people give up right before the harvest. Most people walk away right before the door opens. Don't be most people. Be the one who stays. Be the one who endures. Be the one who keeps building when nobody's watching. Be the one who maintains excellence when nobody cares. Be the one who believes in your vision when everyone else thinks you're crazy. Be that person. Because that's the person who wins. Here's the ultimate truth. And I need you to hear this in your spirit. Whether they care or not is irrelevant. Whether they notice or not doesn't matter. Whether they applaud or not changes nothing. You have an assignment. You have a purpose. You have potential inside you that needs to be released. And you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your future. You owe it to everyone whose life you're supposed to impact, to keep going. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for approval. Stop waiting for someone to tell you you're good enough. You already are. Now go prove it to yourself. Go build something so excellent that when they finally pay attention, they'll wonder how they missed you for so long. Go create something so valuable that when your season comes, and it will come, nobody can deny what you've built. The victory you're building in private will be celebrated in public. The work you're doing in obscurity will be recognized in due time. The seeds you're planting in tears will produce a harvest of joy. But you've got to stay faithful to the process. You've got to trust the timing. You've got to believe that what you're building matters, even when nobody else sees it yet. Because one day, they will see it. One day, they will care. But by then, it won't matter as much because you'll have learned the greatest lesson of all. You never needed them to care in the first place. You just needed you to believe. And you do. So keep going. Your win is closer than you think.